This is lesson 6-4. This is volume with mixed fractions. So like I said on the last video, I'm really enjoying this unit because it is volume, which is good to know, and one of our standards, but we're also getting to review a lot of things that we've already done. And so today it is mixed fractions and improper fractions and multiplying and dividing those. So I want to introduce one new thing to you. Well, this isn't new. This is that we know volume is V equals length times width times height. That's our formula. Or you might see it like this. Volume equals capital B times H. So I made a note here that this is a capital B, and what that represents is length times width. So instead of seeing it written out like this, you might be given the value for capital B, which is the length and width already multiplied together, and that's the volume of the base layer. So for instance, if I have this figure right here, my width is 3, my length is 3, and my height is 2. So my base is right here. It's all of the cubes or all of the units that make up this bottom layer. So if I wrote that out, I would have volume equals B would be my 3 times 3. I'll put that in parentheses because order of operations tells me that I would do that first. That will give me capital B, the volume of the base, times 2 for my height. Volume equals 9 times 2. Volume equals 18 units cubed. But this would be like if you were given a problem that said capital B equals 9, height is 2. You would want to know how to be able to solve that. So that's just a little starting note for you. Okay, now a review of mixed fractions into improper fractions. So some of you probably have this down. We also have done this year, so this will just be a review and then applying it to these three-dimensional figures. So here I have a mixed number. It's mixed because I have a whole number and a fraction. So my mixed number is 2 1/4, and I want to change it to an improper fraction. We're going to do the steps for that, but our improper fraction is 9/4. If you don't remember how to do that, you're using the backwards C method. So here I have 2 1/4, that mixed number that I started with, and using the backwards C, so it'll go around like this. The first part here is multiplication, and up at the top we have addition. So our first step is to multiply the denominator by the whole number. So that's this multiplication symbol right here. Multiply denominator by the whole number. So that's 4 times 2. That equals 8. Our next step is to add the numerator to this new number that we've gotten. Add the numerator to that number, and that number being this one right here. So my numerator is 1 right here, so I'll do 8 plus 1 equals 9. And now that new number becomes the numerator and the denominator stays the same. So the new number becomes the numerator and the denominator stays the same. So this new number that I came up with by multiplying and adding becomes the numerator, and my denominator stays as 4. So now I have a mixed fraction, or I'm sorry, an improper fraction with a numerator larger than the denominator that I can use to multiply or divide or find common denominator if I needed to do that. Okay, so you will use that to complete this homework assignment. And then I also gave you guys a practice of just multiplying and dividing mixed numbers. Okay, so next page, there are 3 pages, but they're all, each problem just takes a lot of space, so it's not a lot of notes. Okay, so 6-4 continued is multiplying improper fractions. So that's what we just did right there, but I want to show you how we would apply that to a 3-dimensional figure. So I have my 3-dimensional figure here. One side is 4 2/3, 8 1/4, and 4 yards. Let me flip to my next page here in my scratch notes. So I'm going to use the backwards C on each of these to make it into something that I can multiply. This one is 3 times 4 is 12 plus 2 is 14 over 3. So that's this one. Times this one here becomes 8 times 4 is 32 plus 1 is 33 over 4 times 4. So remember from the previous lesson that this fraction is just going to be over 1. A whole number over 1 is still that whole number. And this will give me my volume. Okay, so now I can go through and do the math on this. I'll do the bottom first. Oh, you can cross cancel on these if you're comfortable doing that. We haven't been doing that this year, but if you remember how, that's fine. Like I could divide both of these by 2 and get 7 and 2, and I could divide both of these by 3 and get 1 and 11. So if you want to do that, you'd be dealing with smaller numbers, but for the sake of just being consistent with how we've been doing it in class this year, I'm not going to do that. So let's see, I'll do the bottom first. 3 times 4 is 12, times 1 is 12. And then if I went through and did the entire top, 14 times 33 times 4, you could do that longhand or on your calculator. Ask your parents what they'd prefer for you to do. Like I've told you guys, we're not testing your multiplication skills on this particular standard. We're testing you on the formula and applying it to the shape. And I can't stop you from using a calculator because you're at home. So it is 1,848. So here I have an answer that is improper and not reduced. So that answer is really hard to understand because I can't really wrap my head around what 1,848 over 12 is. So I'm going to reduce it using division. So we're going to take our denominator, and it goes right here. And this should all be a review. If you need more on this, you can go back to Unit 3. I'll write that down. Unit 3, we have lots of examples and things for this. 1,848 divided by 12. 12 does not go into 1. 12 does go into 18 one time. 1 times 12 is 12. Subtract them and get 6. Bring down my 4. 12 goes into 64 5 times, and 5 times 12 is 60. Subtract. Bring down my 8. And 12 goes into 48 4 times. So it goes in there evenly. So now I have a number that I can understand. I know what 154 is. And so this is the entire volume here. So remember, what do I need to do with this? It is 154. They gave me a unit. It's yards cubed. That's my answer for volume. I had to convert these into improper fractions, multiply them, and then reduce it. So lots of steps in there, but you guys have all of these in your tool bag. Okay, now for dividing improper fractions. So I just have an example here. Here's my improper fractions, 3 1/3 divided by 2 3/5. I'm going to convert them using the backward C. That's my first step. So I end up with 3 times 3 is 9 plus 1 is 10 over 3 divided by 5 times 2 is 10 plus 3 is 13 over 5. And now we have this nice little jingle of keep it, change it, flip it. So our division problem is really just going to become a multiplication problem. This is, okay, here's our 3 parts. Keep, change, flip. Okay, so let me rewrite this. I'm going to keep 10 over 3, change my division symbol to a multiplication symbol, and flip this fraction. So instead of 13 over 5, I'm now going to have 5 over 13. So we typically, or I do at least, think of division as being the most complicated, but all I did was make it into a multiplication problem, and I know how to do that, and so this is easy. Okay, so my third step now is to multiply. Ten times 5 is 50, and 3 times 13 is 39. So here I have an improper fraction, but just like up here, we should really put it into a mixed number. So my last step is to convert to a mixed number. Okay, so I'll do that by 39. My denominator comes to the outside of the division problem here, and my numerator goes inside. 39 goes into 50 one time. That's pretty easy. But this is a good example because we have a remainder in this one. 1 times 39 is 39. When I subtract, I get 11. So what do we do when we have a remainder when we're doing fractions? Our remainder comes up here and becomes our new numerator. And our original denominator that we have stays as the denominator. All right, if you need more examples of that, go back to your notes in Unit 3. So my answer is 1 and 11/39. Okay, we are gonna do an example with, oh wait, I guess I don't have an example with a figure here, but there's just one more page. Okay, this is finding an unknown value if you're given several other values. So it seems a little bit more overwhelming because it's volume and we're also using fractions and decimals. But just think back to area. Back in the very beginning when this was super easy for you guys and we had area equals base times height. So if you were given this figure right here, that the area inside of this square is 42 and the base is 6. I know that you guys think that my 6's and b's are hard to, I should have chosen something different than 6, but anyways, the base is 6 and the area is 42. So we would have set that up like this, and you guys all know how to do this. 42 equals 6 times the height you would know that you would divide 42 by 6. To get the height, because you guys know that multiplication fact that 6 times 7 is 42. So that would cancel out the 6 on this side. Remember, I've been saying to you guys, isolate, get by itself the variable. And in this case, h is our variable. So we want to get it on that right side of the equal sign by itself. So divided by 6, that cancels out my 6's and leaves h alone on this side. And 42 divided by 6 is 7, equal sign, h. And we know that that works. That makes sense. If I did 6 times 7, I would get 42 in the middle there. So the same idea applies to volume. It doesn't need to be overwhelming or confusing. You guys know how to do this. You just have to trust in the process and what you've already learned. So I wrote out a couple examples for you from the workbook. I think I'm just gonna pull out the ones that I like. It's kind of hard for me to go through the book and do this. I'm also afraid that my phone will always run out of space. And so this is example number 9 from in the book with the wolf on it. So they give you volume is 209.3 meters cubed. Length is 7 meters. Height is 4.6 meters. What is the width? So I know that volume equals length times width times height in any order because of the commutative property, so it doesn't actually matter what order I put those in. So they give me 209.3 equals, I have length, I have height, and I am looking for W right here. So because this has more than 2 numbers, unlike this one up here, this is just the extra step in here. I am first going to multiply 7 times 4.6 to simplify that. So before break, we were working on simplifying things and combining things that we could. 7 times 4.6 is 32.2. And then I still have times W. And I still know that my volume is 209.3. Now I have a problem that looks just like this simple one that I know how to solve from the beginning of the year. Okay, I have one thing on this side of the equal sign, another number, and my variable. So because this is multiplication, I am going to divide by 32.2. That cancels out. Divide this side by 32.2. And when I divide 209.3 by 32.2, I get 6.5. That's the only thing I have left on this side. Equal sign. I canceled this out by dividing, and now I have W. So now I have found my width. So my answer is 6.5 meters. Okay, I'm going to do one more example for you doing with fractions. If this was too fast for you, which it probably was, you can just back it up and watch it again. Okay, this is number 8. So they give me volume is 156 feet cubed, length is 4 4/5, width is 6 1/2. What is the height? So again, I know that volume equals length times width times height. They give me volume, 156, equals, oh, let's see, I have a mixed number. So I didn't even think of it until I got right here, but I'm like, I cannot multiply those. I need to change those into improper fractions first. So I'm going to do backwards C on both of them. 5 times 4 is 20, plus 4 is 24. So this becomes 24 over 5. And 2 times 6 is 12, plus 1 is 13. So that one's 13 over 2. Now I can set up my problem. 156 equals 24 over 5 times 13 over 2. I hope that's big enough that you guys can see it. I should have made it bigger. Times h, which is my unknown. So I'm going to simplify what I can, which is combining these and multiplying them. So I'm going to rewrite this. I'm going to put 156 into that fraction form right away, just like I did on the other page where I put 4 over 1. 156 over 1 is still 156 because it's being divided into one group. Equals, and if I went through and I did the math on this, 24 times 13 is 312, and 5 times 2 is 10. So this was length times width. So this is like that capital B. Okay, this could be represented as capital B equals 312 over 10, although we'd want to make that into a mixed number. But that is capital B, length times width. Okay, so just like I've been doing, this is a multiplication problem, so the way that I can get this off of this side is to divide by 312 over 10. If I do that to one side, I need to do it to the other. Cancels out here. And I am left with h, but we still have some math to do here because I now have 156 over 1 divided by 312 over 10. Okay, so I'm going to keep it, change it, flip it. So I'll keep 156 over 1, change my division sign to multiplication, and I'm going to flip this one. So instead of 312 over 10, now I have 10 over 312. Do the math on this. 156 times 10 is 1,560. 1 times 312. Is 312. So here is a answer. 1,560 over 312 is the height. Well, I don't really understand what that means because those are big numbers and kind of random numbers. So I need to convert it into a mixed number that